So what I wanted to do is I wanted to present a couple tools, more than a couple. I'm going to present 15 tools. If you can go to the next slide for me. Here's where you're going to find me, right? So greenlanemarketing.com. I write there. That's our agency. A couple people from Greenlane are here. You'll see some of my writing on Moz. You'll see some of my writing on search engine land. You'll find me on Practical E-commerce starting next month, and you'll always see me at the bar. So I'm going to talk about tools. I'm going to try to exclude some of the really popular ones because I have a feeling that a lot of people know about, the Screaming Frog. I'm sure a lot of you know about Moz. Raise a hand. Raise your hands. How many people know about Moz and Screaming Frog? It's just so I can get a sense of my audience. Okay. So I tried to put some things in here that were maybe new to you. So we can go to the next slide. So tool number 1. Has anybody heard of SiteBulb? Cool. A couple hands. All right. So SiteBulb is a really, 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 really cool site, right? It says right there on their homepage, SiteBulb is a desktop website crawler that delivers instantly actionable insights and intuitive data visualization. So I'm really big into data visualizations, but I really like any kind of tool that gives you actionable insights. So SiteBulb, if you can go to the next slide for me. If you've heard of deep crawl, it's a little bit like deep crawl in my mind, right? So it doesn't just do what Screaming Frog does. It doesn't just crawl the site and say, okay, you can export the information you need. It gives you a lot of trending information. And the guys that built this, and Nick and I know them, brilliant SEOs, like super, super smart guys. So they're coming in and they're building this tool. And when they first told me that they were going to build it a couple of years ago, I was like, oh, you're going to take on deep crawl and Screaming Frog. And they did it, man. They built this tool and it is super, super powerful. I'm a big fan of it. If you can go to the next slide. Right, so the cool stuff it does, and this is run on the Greenlane site. You can see up here, it's a fuzzy number, but I can't lie. It says it's like 150 or whatever it is. So that's 150 hints, basically saying 150 things that are wrong with the Greenlane site. But yeah, so it's a really great, really intuitive tool. When you're doing your technical SEO, this is an absolutely excellent tool to use, to go through, and it does give you really good actionable insights. Now, Jeff said I can hit a button here. Did I do that or did you do that?
It's not going to work.
Jeff set me up.
I did try.
Right, so data visualization, that's a thing that I really like. So they do a cool thing. They can actually give you a visualization of the entire website. And to me, that's pretty useful, right? So here's the Greenlane site. When you actually go in, you can play with it. You can drag these tables around, but you can get a sense of the hierarchy of your site from a bird's eye view, right? And you can drill in. So you can see our homepage, you can see our service pages, and you can go down and you can get a good idea of how your site is put together if you're doing, if you like to group your keywords and your content. This is a great tool to really help you stay themed. All right, so the next tool I want to talk about is called Cognitive SEO. So Cognitive SEO, they're a suite. Backlink analysis, content audit, and rank tracking for every site. But I really like them for the backlink analysis, right? So this tool, it's not the most expensive player in the market. There's actually bigger and better and more powerful backlink analyzing tools. Kerbu, I think, link research tools. But what's really cool about this is, again, data visualization. So I find this to be really valuable. This is all of the links coming to all the pages on using the Greenlane site again. So what do we want? We want deep links. When we're doing link building, we want to be able to get page rank all throughout our site, right? So what usually happens? Well, most sites get linked to the home page. This cluster here is the home page. You can actually look throughout the site, and again, when you're using this in real time, you're able to click in and see what pages these are. I'll just let you know that this is the Greenlane version without the www. This is the non-HTTP, like whatever it is. A lot of those are just duplicates of the home. But what I want to see when I see a chart like this, I want to see some of our most valuable content, our biggest assets, our money pages. I want to see more. I want to see these clusters bigger. So this gives me a sense when I'm looking at a client's site, where should we be link building to? So I think that's a really helpful tool. I mean, it'll go through and it'll give you a lot of other slice and dices of backlinks. It'll tell you all sorts of things that you want to know. It's pretty powerful. All right, so the next tool I want to talk about is ClearScope. Has anyone heard of this tool? I actually learned this from Nick. You probably don't know that. Nope. So the way that ClearScope works, without going over anybody, so how familiar are we in the room with things like search entities?
What is a search entity?
Okay, good. I have no idea. All right, so a search entity is a person, place, or thing, right? It's Google has this semantic search model that it's using. It's been using it since Hummingbird. It's kind of like Google's other brain, right? So we've always been trying to get keyword rankings, but now we're trying to get search entities we're trying to help our pages be a little bit more relevant for these search entities. So here's an example. If you go and you look up Philadelphia Eagles, you get the knowledge graph on the side, right? It'll say Philadelphia Eagles, it'll say Carson Wentz is the quarterback, it'll say Doug Peterson is the coach. These are things that Google knows in the knowledge graph. So what they're able to do is they're able to say, okay, we know that Doug Peterson is the coach of the Eagles. We know the Eagles are an NFL team. Therefore, we know that Doug Peterson is an NFL coach. All right, this is all working towards that semantic search model that Google is now adapting. So what we're finding now is the more that our content hits upon those things that Google knows, those relationships, those concepts and relationships, the better they want to reward that site. Making sense? So next slide, please. What this tool will do is it's going to measure the content and the landscape, the SERPs, for any kind of keyword or entity that you want to go after. And it's going to give you, a lot of information. Here's what the other guys have. Here's what you don't have. If you do one more slide for me. So simply, all you have to do is take the copy that you wrote, throw it in, and it's going to give you some of the entities on the side here that you don't have. It's going to tell you how many times it thinks you need to have it to stay competitive with the competitors. How many people have heard of Google Trends? Everybody's hands go up. All right, so obviously this is
Trouble getting the logo, huh?
Yeah, I don't know.
Or we did a screen capture of it and captured the whole thing.
Yeah. I Googled transparent Google Trends logo, and I got trolled. Right, so Google Trends, I know everybody knows about Google Trends, but this is just the way that I want you to think about it if you haven't been, right? So this is an actual story that I'm going to twist to make sound like it's true. All right, so we had a client, Jen and I had this client, and they said, man, we rank really well for office furniture, but we're still getting good rankings, but our conversions suck. What do we do? Well, we went to Google Trends. We said, dude, people aren't searching for it anymore. Like, you're not getting conversions because people aren't searching for it. Oh, shit, okay. Next slide. So we said, well, why don't we, do a little bit keyword research, try to figure out what people are searching for? Well, open plan office was something they brought up. Yeah, we're getting a little bit of traction there. Next slide, please. But then, you could find something like standing desks. Oh, that's really becoming popular now, right? So Google Trends is a really good way to help you, when you do your keyword research, see what kind of audience is out there. See if it's really a keyword that's in demand. I like using this better than estimated search volume. I think this is a really, really helpful tool. Again, I need to see graphs. Numbers scare the shit out of me. Make sense? All right, next slide, SEMrush. I know everybody knows about SEMrush, right? All right. And honorable mention, Ahrefs. I know the team here really likes Ahrefs. Both awesome tools. But I'm going to talk about, and Ahrefs is doing a lot of things that's stealing SEM, eating SEMrush's lunch. I'm really, really impressed with what Ahrefs is doing. So next slide. One of the things that I think is really, really valuable with this tool is, this comparison, right? You can take any different websites and you can put them together. You can see where the content overlaps are. You can see where, Salesforce and HubSpot are competing for terms. And that used to be kind of where it ended, right? You could click in and then get a whole list from all of Salesforce, all of, HubSpot. Next slide, please. But one of the things that they put out a couple months ago that I'm surprised not a whole lot of people are talking about is now you can drill down and look at page information. So the problem with that last comparison, Salesforce has a whole ton of different services. HubSpot has a whole ton of different services. It's really not apples to apples. There's only certain parts where it matters. So the fact that these live reports now give you information, you can drill into the specific pages and see where your opportunities are. That's a pretty big deal. So that's a nice change that they made that I just wanted to bring to everyone's attention. All right, I'm going to get a drink of water, and then I'm going to be self-promotional. Was that Baron again? Oh, Bill Rowland. All right, so I want to talk a little about, I really don't want this to sound like a commercial. So at Green Lane, we have a section called Garage. There's a lot of times, like a good agency, like they do here, when there's a need for a solution and there isn't a tool that exists, a good agency will build it. And we have built a couple tools here, and I'm going to talk about what some of those tools are because they're pretty damn cool tools. So next slide, please. So we have something called the Google Indexation Checker. Look at how good that little graphic is. I spent so long.
I'm kind of impressed by that.
Yeah. Next slide, please. So what does the Google Indexation Checker do? So there's a lot of times where, you have a bunch of URLs. You really don't know if Google has them or not. You can go straight to Google. You can do the cite command, all sorts of different operators. Sometimes they'll show you whether the URL is in there. Sometimes they don't. It's kind of a mess. So here's what you can actually do with this tool. You can take a crawl of your site. Right here I'm using Sitebulb. You can use Screaming Frog, Deep Crawl, all of them. They're all great. So you can take a crawl of your site, and what I recommend is take a crawl of the things that you don't even think should be indexed. Take a crawl of everything. Next. Right? You can do this in the new Search Console, right? You can go to the new Search Console, the new version that everybody hates, and you can download, all the URLs. But I'm even finding that that's not that accurate. So this tool, basically what you do, you take every single one of your URLs, or you can just do this with one URL if you're just curious to see if it's indexed. Throw it right in there and hit go. And it's going to go through and it's going to use a Google API, so it's not scraping. We're not breaking any of Google's rules that we know of. And it's going to let you know, yes or no, whether that page is indexed. So this is a really cool and helpful tool, and we have a lot of people that use it, so give it a try. We also built a Chrome extension because XML sitemaps is still a big deal. Technical SEO is a really big deal now. I mean, we sort of had a heyday, and then it sort of became like, hey, Google's getting better. They can crawl the entire web, whatever. But what I used to think was happening is, yeah, Google's now able to crawl the entire web, so they're taking on the burden to go ahead and crawl the stuff that they can't crawl. What I now believe is they're able to crawl the entire web, and they're able to see the stuff that they can't crawl, and they're going, fuck you, I'm not doing it. I realize that this is total shit, and they're bailing. So to me, technical SEO is coming back. You want to make sure that your XML sitemap is really tip-top. Otherwise, you're going to be sending a lot of signals to Google. You're going to be sending a lot of pages to Google that they just don't need to be wasting time with. And you're going to give them a bad time, right? Because Google comes to your website with only a set amount of gasoline. You want to make sure that the stuff that they see through this XML sitemap is the stuff that they need to see, right? The canonical URLs, not redirects, not all that garbage. So this Chrome extension, which you just pop it into in the Chrome, just add it, and whenever you go to an XML sitemap, it's going to be able to give you a lot more information about those URLs without you having to put them into one of the other tools. So just a nice quick view of your XML sitemap so you can troubleshoot. And there's an example of what it looks like. It's gorgeous. So another tool that we have is called Head Exam. I think that's the funniest picture. I don't know why. It just made me laugh. So Head Exam, what Head Exam does is it looks at the server headers. And there's a lot of times things are now getting put into server headers that the SEO doesn't really think to look at, right? Why is this page not being indexed? What's going on here? I don't see anything wrong with the source or the DOM. Well, maybe it's in the header. And a lot of the bigger sites that we've seen, it's usually bigger.
What a DOM is for some of the people in the audience?
DOM is the rendered version of HTML, basically.
What's the acronym stand for? Let's start with that.
Document Object Model, all right? So you're looking at the source code, you're seeing the HTML, the browser renders it, and then creates the page, right? So JavaScript, all that kind of stuff. You're looking at the before version, the DOM is the after version. Like, that's really important. You have to be able to understand how to do that, because there's a lot of stuff that's going to be in there that you're not seeing in the source code. And this is kind of like that, right? So the server headers are showing things. You pop in some URLs. You can see here, the Washington Examiner. They actually have a canonical tag to something called wexvip.newsock.com. They probably have no idea. That's maybe, hopefully it's fixed by now, but that's telling Google canonical to something else. That's terrible SEO. So there's a lot of stuff in your server header that you need to look for. All right, so we're gonna give you something kind of cool. I think it's pretty cool. So that API that we were talking about earlier with the indexation tool, if you go to the next slide, we built a rank tracker. And rank trackers, typically they scrape Google, and I know they can be pretty expensive. So using that same API and going to this bit.ly, Bill is great. which I didn't type. Swear to God, that's just how Bitly spit it out. And using the password greenlane 2018, you can make your own copy of this sheet. It's as simple as taking the keywords that you want to rank for, dropping them right into the column A, hit and run. All right, it's a Google sheet, so it's going to ask for, you're going to have to log in with your Google account. But it's going to give you the rankings, and give you the ranking pages. We're still working on this, so we're going to have some more updates to it where it'll be able to run for you in the background. But if you want to check it the next day, just go to it, hit run ranks, and it'll populate it into the next column. So it's a free rank tracker that works really, really well. Right now, it only works in the US.
Can we have a robot go hit run reports every like 60 minutes?
Yeah, I think so. What limit did we hit?
Google, so how often does it update?
It's not scraping Google, it's using that API, so it happens fast. All right, so now I'm going to talk about Screaming Frog's SEO log file analyzer. Screaming Frog's SEO. No. How many people use this tool? Okay, not many. So the next slide, please. All right, so one of the things that we really want to pay attention to is how often Google's coming to our site. I mentioned earlier that Google's kind of like, we only have a certain amount of gasoline, and our job is to make sure that Google's only seeing the important pages. So the problem with Google's Search Console, that son of a bitch, is the data is sometimes really wrong, right? Because here it's showing a website of mine that on that day, it hit and crawled 541 pages. Problem is my site has 3 pages. So I don't trust this data. And even though it says pages, my understanding is that this is actually not just pages, but any document at all. So this isn't that helpful, right? This doesn't really tell us where Google's coming. It doesn't really tell us what the most important pages are in Google's mind. So what I recommend is grab the log files, right? Grab the log files from your website, from your client site. Go to the server ops and say, I want these files. And the bigger the site, these are massive files. Sometimes you can only get them from like a 2 or 3 day span. But you pop them into the Google or the Screaming Frog log analyzer, and it's going to give you a lot more information about the bots, about where they're going, about how often they're coming, when they were there. Right? So this is the output of that tool. And here we can see all the important pages and how often they come. Next slide, please. The other side, you can see all the shit pages in Google's mind and how infrequently they come. And this is really valuable when a client says, this page is so good, it's the best page out there. You can look, and if you see in the bottom area, you're like, oh, we got a problem. Google thinks your page is shit. You might love it, but it's not good. So you can do all sorts of page rank sculpting, all sorts of internal links. Optimizing it to make Google think that it's more important. Because index bloat can signal crawl waste. All right, tool number 11 is called Wonder Search. And I didn't want to sound like I was doing a total commercial for Greenlane, so I wanted to show some of Nick's and the crew's great stuff. Wonder Search, and you can definitely fill me in on what I'm missing here, but Wonder Search I think is awesome because what it's doing is it's looking at the people also search for information right out of the Google SERPs, and people also ask. And that's
related and authors.
And that's cool because if you type a word like Fender guitars, you're going to get a list of things that Google thinks are related. That's important to know. Not what we think is related, but what Google actually thinks is related. So that's a really clever tool, dude. That's a great idea. All right, how many people like to do link building? Yeah, link building's fun. Nobody's raising their hand. PitchBox is an awesome tool for link building because it makes it a lot easier, right? So with link building, you got to do all sorts of things. You got to make sure that the links that you're trying to get are coming from pages that have value. Maybe you find a page that has value, you really want to link from that page, now you got to go and search through it and try to find the contact information. Then you got to send out the email. Then you got to remember to follow up with the email. So these guys who built PitchBox, they're brilliant SEOs and they're brilliant link builders, and they built this tool around how to do link building at scale, right? One of the coolest things, if you can go to the next page, please. One of the coolest things is you can set up all your different campaigns, and they break up each one of the campaigns in milestones, right? So if you want one person to work on, the collection of information, you want another person to actually be doing the emails, like you can break it up, and that makes it so much easier. You can do prospecting through here. You can do almost everything through here. This is a really, really good tool for link building. It does, because link building to me, it still needs to be done. Absolutely needs to be done. It's still super powerful, but it's so much work. And it seems to me, this is my opinion, that a lot of the links that we used to go after in the day have just lost value in a lot of different verticals and niches. And I think that's Google saying, okay, we can't be manipulated by this stuff anymore. So they made link building harder, in my opinion. So a tool like this comes around at the perfect time because they're helping put more, fishing lines in the water without, spending that much time on it. So it's a great tool, PitchBox. And they're local. Next one is URL Profiler. This is made by the same guys that make Sitebulb. I think this is a great tool. So how many times do you have a large list of URLs and you're just like, I wish I was able to pull all sorts of metrics on them really fast. I wish I was able to get, let's say, DA from Moz, and I wish I was able to understand site speed from all these URLs. If only there was a tool for that. Well, that's what this tool does. Next slide, please. So basically, it's not the sexiest interface you ever saw, but you can check the boxes that you want data back on, right? So let's say I want to get Majestic information because I'm a big fan of Majestic. You just plug their API in. Let's say I want to get who is information about each URL. I want to understand what the social shares are, page speed. What did they just announce the other day? That they're using Lighthouse now?
Yeah, they returned the Crux report.
Yeah. So this tool is really, really sharp. You can connect to your analytics. So maybe you just want to get a lot of data, a lot of traffic data. You get a pretty big export from this. You get a lot of data out of it, but just by checking a few boxes, hit and go. So I use this tool a lot. All right, so I'm going to talk about Google Search Console. You probably never heard of this one. So Google Search Console, I was talking earlier about the information about when people come to the site. Google does an okay job of actually giving you bandwidth that Google's taking. But they also do a shit poor job of the search analytics tool, right? Because Google took away our keyword visibility in organic a few years ago, and then they started giving it to us a little bit, they gave us a little bit more with the search analytics report. You can get, information like, clicks, impressions, ranking, right? So that's great information. We're finally getting some of this back. But what drives me nuts is they only give us 999 results. So it got me thinking, I'm like, there's got to be more information. Google has more data than this. Why can't we get it? So if you go to the next slide, we decided to try something. In this case, we used a tool called Search Metrics. It's an add-on for Google Sheets. Supermetrics. Search Metrics is different. Supermetrics. So Supermetrics basically allows you to plug APIs into Google Sheets. And one of the APIs you can plug in is a Search Console API. So if you go to the next one. And it works super easy. It's not a very hard interface. Shows right on the right side of your screen. When you set it up, you can actually pull all that information you saw, but go well past 999 results. The Green Lane site had 46, and we're tiny. Green Lane site had 46,000 different keywords that were in Google's radar, in Google's brain. So this is a really cool tool. There's other ways to get this information out of the API. I think Supermetrics is a very good, easy way. Somebody told me that you can do it with Data Studio, but I don't know how to do that yet. So, huh?
You use BigQuery.
BigQuery.
You get 25,000 calls per day for the GSE.
That's good. That's fine for most. So very cool tool. If you want to learn how to do this, you can go to this Moz post right there. I spelled it out the way that we do it. So definitely brings back a lot of visibility, and it's definitely something to be excited about. All right, this is my last tool, and it's actually a bunch of tools. So the tool is A/B testing platforms, okay? So whether you like Google Optimize, VW Optimizely, or Hotjar, any information that you can get about people coming to your site and what they like and what they don't like. Even if you don't believe that Google is using user metrics, coming to a site, seeing nothing and bouncing back, even if you don't believe they're using that, our job as an SEO is not just to get rankings. Our job is to get people to come to the page and do what they were searching for, taking an action that we want them to take, fulfilling a need, right? Because every search that somebody makes is a need. So our job now as SEOs, we're marketers. So we need to make sure that we're fulfilling that need. And searchers are so picky. As soon as they don't see what they like, within 3 seconds, they might bounce back and go to number 2, go to the next ranking. So conversion rate optimization, to me, is now a fundamental part of SEO. And that's it. My brain is full. Feel free to follow me on Twitter. I love talking to everybody. If anybody ever needs any help, I really like, helping people out. So @Bill Sebald is my Twitter handle, and I'll be here all night. I'll be sleeping on the couch.